you have to make yourself the priority in your life, regardless of whoever else is in your life. Yes, I'm single and I don't have a partner or children, but even if you have children, you are married, if you're a carer, whoever you are, you have to make yourself a priority. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself lacking in, your own emotional stability, taking care of yourself. You'll put people before you, and resentments and frustrations start coming out. A lot of us are also very good at being there for other people. So that's what we would like reciprocated. But we don't know how to be there for ourselves.
Today's guest is Harmesch Kaur, a nervous system informed life coach and human design mentor. She supports clients to understand themselves more deeply so that they can show up to life as their authentic self through the lens of human design and the nervous system. Harmesch is the author of The Empowered Soul, Guidance and Inspiration to Create a Life You Love, and regularly hosts self-development workshops. Welcome, Harmesch.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited for our conversation. So, with that said, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
So for me, I think it's really about not living the traditional lifestyle, I guess, of a South Asian woman. I've never been married, I've never had children, but I've lived my life in a way that, I've got to do so many different things. I've been able to travel extensively, run my own business, things that sometimes South Asian women don't really get to do because they follow a traditional life of marriage and children.
Absolutely. Yes. And in which way does the culture you were born in or raised in enhance or inhibit your development and openness? It's quite a big question, I know.
Oh, that is a deep question. Wow. Like I was raised in a Sikh Punjabi family, tradition, culture, whatever you would like to call it. And when I was growing up, the emphasis was really on being almost a perfect daughter, learning all the things to be that perfect daughter, that, helping around the house, helping the family, putting everyone else before myself, cooking, all of that kind of thing, so that eventually I could become good marriage material, if you like, and then carry on that tradition. But in the time that I was raised, there wasn't really the kind of encouragement to be your own person or be my own person. And I think for a lot of women and men probably as well, my sort of generation, my age, they probably had the same sort of thing, where really this is the path that you're going to take. So it does really hinder you in your own development of yourself. But there are parts of our culture that are really quite nourishing. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, yes, I feel family is important. I feel that, being able to take care of myself is important. Caring for other people is important, but not to the detriment of myself. So I've been able to see kind of both sides of it, really.
Absolutely. And being Punjabi myself, absolutely. And being second generation, I think we're the same generation. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of similarity here as well with us. So this should be an interesting conversation.
Yes, it should.
So yeah, I absolutely can agree with you. It can be absolutely nourishing and absolutely wonderful. Yeah, family is my core value, my number one core value.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. And then there is at what cost is the cost of our own self-development, having a voice and things like that. So yeah, I can totally understand that. Yes. What pressures do South Asians feel that impact following their own lives, the traditional lives?
I think the pressure comes from obviously the parents and and maybe not even just the parents, but grandparents and anyone else that's in the community. So because the community when I was growing up, I don't really know how it is now, but it was quite tight knit because at that time a lot of people had immigrated to England, so they kind of kept together. Everyone knew each other in that particular, whichever area you're living in. If there were quite a few of you, you kind of stuck together,
Absolutely.
and tried to help each other out. So it wasn't even a case of just your family, but then there's like an extended community who are looking out for you as well, or looking at you, however you want to,
Absolutely.
however
I
you want
like
to,
that.
the perspective on that. And I think the pressure does then come to, South Asian, whoever it is that you can't step outside of your front door without thinking, oh, but what if I'm seen doing, something that I shouldn't be doing, or I've been told not to do. And the pressure then comes to kind of, I don't know, I knew so many South Asians leading double lives. It was
Absolutely.
unreal, and I'm not saying that that's something that doesn't happen nowadays, but I just remember people kind of not being truthful to their parents about where they were going and who they were going with. But that was one thing that I always kept my word on. It didn't matter where I was going, who I was going with. I always told my parents because I didn't want somebody seeing me somewhere and then going and phoning my mum, the kind of hotline, kind of thing, and telling her something and her not knowing. So I always, and I always said that to my parents as well. It's like, I would rather tell you so that so that if anyone does come and say anything to you, you already know, you have
Absolutely.
nothing to worry about. But I think that's a pressure that a lot of South Asians had. And, some people didn't have the courage to just tell their parents where they were going, what they were doing, and started leading, double lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, like, one of the things, especially, it's a frowned on. So, yeah, I can totally understand that. How has it been not following a traditional culture path of marriage then? Because, you've got the old aunties,
Yeah.
oh, we've got so and so, we know so and so, and they're always trying to set you up.
You know what? It was like that really for a very long time for me, because I had a lot of cousins, and not just in my immediate area, but I also had cousins in the Midlands, so they were quite close, and we would always be visiting them. And because we were all kind of similar ages, once one person started getting married, then another person, and it was just kind of wedding after wedding. And every time we would be at a wedding or a family function or something, I would always get the question, so when are you getting married? When are you going to find someone? And having that constantly, I was just like, I don't want to get married. That was my answer to everyone. I don't want to get married. And it wasn't that I hadn't been introduced to people. I'd had quite a few introductions and they were not the best meetings, believe me. But the constant questioning, it does wear you down after a while, and you kind of, I found myself at times giving in and going, okay, well, do you know anyone? And just meeting people for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think a
But
lot of people do that. It's a shame.
yeah, because again, but the thing is, I think, again, it's having that courage to say no, because the other person could be really wanting to get married and you're wasting their time as well as your own.
Absolutely.
It was really, really difficult. But I think as the older I got and kind of stuck to my own guns, I think people started to stop asking. And I was quite glad about that because it meant there was almost the pressure had been taken off from not thinking, oh God, who's going to say something? Who's going to mention, oh, someone's son or their
Yeah.
cousin or something, is looking to
Mm.
get married. It kind of took that pressure off.
Uh,
But I will say it's not easy
mhm,
because living on your own and single income, doing everything for yourself
mhm.
is not an easy road to take. So it can from the outside sometimes look really, really, that grass is greener kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a lot of people like, oh yeah, you're lucky, you're single, you can do whatever you want. But you know what? It gets lonely sometimes,
Mm.
you know? And when you realize that you are the person who is responsible for everything, there's actually no one else there to take some of the weight of challenges and things sometimes. People don't understand that.
Mhm.
And that can be quite hard for people to understand when they do have people around them
Absolutely.
constantly.
Mhm. So how did your family accept this change in you?
Well, my mum and dad, I have been like really lucky to be honest,
Mhm.
because my parents have been very accepting. And I know that even within my own family, if I had had a different set of parents, it would have been a very different story. But I've been quite lucky that, yeah, my mum and dad, and I think it's because I've always been honest with them.
Mhm.
And when I've, like actually said to them, look, this is really, I went through quite a few introductions, humiliating experiences.
Gosh.
And, when I've said to my parents, look, I'm not doing that anymore, it's not right that
Mhm.
I should have to go through something like that. If people can't accept me for who I am, then I'm not going to go out there convincing anyone that I should be the person that they marry, And so I was quite lucky, like having that conversation, if you like, with my parents. They, kind of stepped back and let me just do what I wanted to do. But I know not everyone is that lucky because their parents will be pushing and pushing and pushing until you give in.
Absolutely. Yes. Generations of debilitating patterns that come before us, and
Mm.
sometimes they've got to stop. And I'm not saying arranged marriages don't work. They do work for a lot of people,
Oh,
and
yeah.
absolutely brilliant path to take if that's for you though.
Mm.
And that's the key thing here. So what support is there in the South Asian community for people who don't want to follow the traditional paths of arranged marriage?
Well, when you find that out, please let me know. um, because, like, to be honest,
Mhm.
I think I wouldn't call myself an outcast. I really
Mhm.
wouldn't.
Mhm.
But I have tended to not continue to kind of really be in the community as much as maybe
Okay.
some of my family,
Mhm.
because I think when I was a bit younger, you can get the sense from people that it's like, oh, she's still not married. It's almost like kind of that pitying kind of thing. And it's like, you don't have to pity me at all.
Mhm.
I still go to family functions and things, but I've also had a wide, a diverse set of friends.
Mhm.
I've never stuck to South Asian people because I always, always felt quite judged by
Mhm.
South Asian people because I wasn't doing what was expected of me. And I know that's just a projection of their own, because they've got to do it. It's almost that bit of a kind of green eyed monster thing. But I've tended to stay away from groups of South Asian people.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know what support there is in the community, to be honest, for people. I think it's almost finding other people who haven't also followed that path and maybe reaching out to them and finding out what their experience was, and seeing if they have any advice that they can give people who don't want to follow that path. I
Yeah, I
think
think it's
that's the only thing really.
Absolutely. It's a very individual thing. And as the generations go down, it's more and more quite normal for a lot of people now. There's going to be a lot more where people are more, I won't say in control of their lives, but they just don't have the pressures of what went before us, really, breaking
I,
those patterns.
I do think that
Mm,
to a certain
mm,
point, but what has been interesting to me is actually seeing how some of the younger generations are actually going back to, no, I want my mum and dad to find someone. Because, I mean, the dating scene out there is horrendous, you know.
I'll take your word for it.
But I haven't, to be honest, I haven't dated for a long time because
Yeah.
I got so put off by it's almost like having a full-time job.
Wow.
Messaging people, trying to meet up with people, and people aren't necessarily looking to settle down.
Mm,
It's, oh, I just want to have a bit of fun for a while. So I think the younger generations now, because that's how it is, they're almost getting to the point where they're actually going back to that kind of asking their parents,
yeah.
can you find someone for me?
Yeah, I think so actually. I have noticed that. Yeah. Like everything else, it goes full circle.
Well, this is it. But I mean, obviously,
Mm,
in my time,
mhm,
you kind of met someone once or twice, and that was
mhm.
it. Then the next time was your wedding day. I think now you would meet someone, and you would at least meet them, a bit more than that
Yeah, no, I think some.
before actually even making a decision. And I think there's at least there's that grace on the side of the parents nowadays where it's
Mm,
like, okay, we know that it's better for you to do that rather than just put everything in place for you to get married.
absolutely. Yes. So, how does wanting to belong to a community impact one's self worth, self esteem?
I think it can, like, really, it can be a big impact, to be honest. Because for such a long time, I did want to, belong to the community. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this community. Why can I not be accepted? But the only way that you can do that is if you do it the way the community wants you to do it. You can't be anything different. And you either go along with that or you find that self worth and you try and be yourself. Because if you choose to belong and you choose to go along with things that maybe you don't agree with, then you're almost like abandoning yourself
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of community. And I think that's one of the decisions that I think people have to have the courage to take. Is like, am I willing to give up myself for the sake of belonging,
Mm,
or do I actually try and find somewhere where I can belong?
absolutely. I mean, I really hit the ball out of the park being gay
Mm,
in the Asian culture, and I'm grateful my family love me unconditionally. I've had no problems,
mm,
and the wider community, yeah, there's been a few people I've lost, but that's their business, not mine.
mm,
And it's having that courage to stand up and say, yeah, this is me, accept it or don't,
mm,
you know. And I know a lot of people can't do that, and it is hard, and that's why I really started the whole podcast to allow people to have a voice. And that nicely goes on to my next question. How has the power of owning your voice and challenging societal norms that try to keep you small, how has that been for you?
It's not an easy road,
Yeah.
that's for sure, because you can sometimes get painted or viewed as the person who's always making trouble, But
Mm,
again, I think I've been very lucky in that now I've been very lucky, maybe not when I was younger, but
mhm,
I will say what I want to say,
mhm.
but I also know how to say it,
Absolutely.
and I
Mm,
think that that's something that I've learned is that when I was younger, it was more out of a almost like a rebellion or defensiveness.
mm,
Whereas now it's like, well, this is how I feel. It's okay if you don't accept how I feel, but this is how it is.
Yeah, and I think some people can perceive it as being outspoken when actually you're just expressing yourself.
Exactly. And
Mm,
I think it is really how you express yourself
mm,
rather than what you're expressing
mm.
that makes the difference. And yeah, it's not easy. You have to, again, it's one of those things you have to find courage to do,
Absolutely. Yeah,
because otherwise you will just, keep your voice small. And, what happens to your life? Like, are you really living your life or living the life that you want if you're not talking about your needs and what you want or how you feel to the people around you?
absolutely. And I absolutely believe life's too short. Live it, make the most of the time we're here.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
As long as you're not hurting anyone,
Absolutely.
then,
Yes. Mm,
that there's no reason not to speak up
hmm.
for yourself.
Absolutely.
But it's hard because, of our own conditioning and things like that,
Mm,
and what we're taught and how we're taught to behave and things like that. It is difficult. Like, I don't deny that. But I think for me, it's become easier the older I've become, but also because of the work that I've done on myself.
absolutely. And I think this is the thing. If you can't love yourself and be who you are, then what is it all about?
Mm,
It really is. And I
yeah.
think that gets pushed to one side sometimes.
I think as well that
Mm,
like what I've really learned, like through doing my nervous system work,
mm,
is actually finding out what it means to love yourself. And it's
mm,
not about taking yourself on fancy trips or, buying nice things. And, it's not about that. Or, even saying affirmations in a mirror. It actually goes a lot deeper than that. It's like, how much do you love yourself that you're not
mm.
going to abandon your own needs and wants in this world and put other people in front of you?
Absolutely. And that nicely goes on to my next question. So, is that what took you on your journey of being a nervous system informed life coach and human design? So, just to break that down, what is a nervous system informed life coach?
So it is life coaching, but I do it through looking through the nervous system lens,
Hmm.
which, some people use mindset, some
Hmm.
people use inner child work, but I look at the nervous system through whatever challenges someone comes to me with. We will look at the nervous system. How is it responding to the things that are going on in your life?
Mm,
How has it been responding? How do you want it to respond? How do we start to change those kind of things? And I think that's where, for me, learning about how my nervous system has, kind of carried me this far, and that it's not necessarily a good thing. It's got me to where I am, but
mm,
it's not going to get me to where I want to be. So, how do I work with it or understand it to change certain things? And that's where the decisions and, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to have the conversations that need to be had, knowing how to express myself, all of those things have come from that. But there was a lot of self development work that happened before I even got to that stage
yeah,
to even learn about that.
I can imagine. Mm.
Yeah.
So tell me more about your human design, and for the listeners that don't know what it is, you can just explain what it is, please.
Yeah, so human design, it's called the science of differentiation. If you've heard of astrology, you might think it's along the same sort of lines. Astrology does come into it a little bit, but there's a whole host of kind of ancient traditions. I think there's the Kabbalah, the I Ching. There's a couple of other things as well. They're all ancient traditions. The chakra system, and then there's the modern kind of sciences, if you like, of quantum mechanics and genetics and biochemistry, and they all kind of come together to create us as human beings. And human design, really, you have a reading done. You can get your chart like you can do with your astrological chart. And it really just gives you a blueprint of who you are as a person. And it was one of the things I kind of found about 4 or 5 years ago. And having a reading done and seeing what my personality traits were, what my talents were, how my energy kind of worked, it was almost like, oh wow, someone actually understands who I am. And
Wow.
now I can start understanding myself a bit better. And I think that kind of helped me to then start looking at different things that I wanted to do, different ways that I wanted to go in life. It just kind of gave me like a bit more direction and clarity. So, yeah, I kind of use that with clients as well, especially those who are lacking a bit of direction or clarity themselves and just want to know where do I go from here? Who am I?
Wow, that's brilliant. So, how has the nervous system healing helped you to live your life more courageously?
For me, it is that speaking up
Hmm.
and not now kind of suppressing what I feel. I still do. Like, just because I understand how my nervous system works doesn't mean I've become this perfect human being. But it's actually allowed me to feel emotions where I was suppressing them before, and like many of us do, I can now express them, or I can, I understand that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It doesn't make me a bad person or a moody person or whatever,
Yeah.
and I think this is how a lot of us start suppressing our emotions, because we're given these labels of, well, this is you because you're always doing X, Y, Z. And, someone might think you're moody because you're feeling sad, but it's okay to feel those things because that's what it means to be human.
Hmm.
And I think that's what has really, in the last kind of 2.5 years that I've been working with my nervous system, it's really like being able to live life as a human being and allow it all to happen. It's not always about being happy all the time and everything's got to be great. It's okay for those bad things to be there as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned so far in your life?
Oh.
You've probably learnt a lot.
I have learned a lot. I think the one thing that I've really learned this year, because I've had quite a challenging year this year,
Oh.
and the one thing that I've really learned is you have to make yourself the priority in your life,
Mm.
regardless of whoever else is in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm single and I don't have a partner or children, but even if you have children, you are married, if you're a carer, whoever you are, you have to make yourself a priority. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself lacking in, your own emotional stability, taking care of yourself. You'll put people before you, and resentments and frustrations start coming out. And I've really, really learned that this year, that other people, it doesn't matter how much support you need yourself, other people are not necessarily going to be there for you, no matter what they
Mm.
say. So you have to make sure that you're there for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like they say, you've got to be your own cheerleader.
Exactly.
Mm.
And it's not about, you have to do everything yourself, but you have to really get to a place where, and I think this is where I've been able to get to is, you know what, it doesn't matter what happens in life, I'm going to be okay. That's what I've learned. And I don't need anyone else to make me feel that. If that,
Absolutely.
if I have that and I have that support, fantastic.
Yeah.
But as long as I've got me, that is what really, really matters.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And there's so many people that just can't understand that. I really can't. Yeah.
No. And I think, we all do it. We want people to be there for us because we think that's what it means for those people to love us. And that's quite a high expectation to put on people, to be honest. And I think a lot of us are also very good at being there for other people. So that's what we would like reciprocated. But we don't know how to be there for ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Mm.
So you are the author of the book, The Empowered Soul Guidance and Inspiration to Create a Life You Love. Tell me more about your book, Harmesch.
So that was published, when was it, 2023? Yeah, last year. So it's been out nearly 2 years. Wow. But I wrote it. It was just something that I've always wanted to write a book and publish a book. And it kind of came to a point in time where it's like, okay, I need to really just sit down and do it. And I was having a lot of ideas coming through. And I just kind of wrote it. I know it's, anyone who writes a book is probably going to hate me for saying it, but it wasn't something that I had to really think about because it just came out of me. And it probably was the book that I needed maybe all those years ago when I first started self-development, all of that kind of thing, to really help me. And so it's just everything that, I had learned up to that point, really, to help other people who may be in a similar position. So, there's exercises in the book, there's a few prompts and things like that. So it's not just something, because I think that's the other thing that I find with a lot of self-development books, is there's nothing there for you to actually put it into practice. So I wanted to give people that kind of, okay, here's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But now here's something that you can go away and try it for yourself.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So the links will be in the show notes. If that's for you, please do go ahead and get the book. Harmesch, what would you say to anyone that is stuck and can't see a way out from traditional cultures and taboos? So anybody that's listening and feels stuck, really.
What would I say? I would say really think about what you want in your life before you do anything. Don't be a reactive person. Really think about what you want, because when you know what you want, it will help you get that courage to start living that out, rather than coming from a place of just trying to rebel against everything that's in front of you. And try and find people who have been through similar, journeys. We're really, really lucky now that we have social media, because there are so many people out there who do share their stories specifically for people who do find it difficult. Back in my day, there was none of this. The internet was just about being born, So we're really lucky. You have YouTube, podcasts like this one, social media accounts. There are people who are sharing their stories. So if you can't find anyone in your community, or don't feel that you can turn to someone in your community, there's people all over the world that you can connect to and get that support from.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So where can the listeners find you online, your book? What's your website, Harmesch?
So my website's www.harmeshkaur.com. You can find all my details on there. You can come and find me on Instagram as well at harmesh.kaur. I write a Substack called Awake in Life. So, if you're more into the reading kind of things, you can find me on there. But yeah, I'm quite happy for people to reach out to me if they have any questions, or just want a little bit of support. I'm absolutely open to it.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today, and for doing the work on yourself. And by doing so, you have helped so many others and made a difference. I'd like to acknowledge you for that, Harmesch Kaur.
Thank you, Anita.
So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
Oh, my definition of courage. Wow. I would say it's letting the real you live the life that you are here to live.